So some of the themes that came out of today's DevOps Summit around enabling DevOps. It's really crucial to have a shared goal for development and operations. A shared goal is something around delivering business value, but delivering business value regularly, rapidly, but also reliably as well. And if you have a shared goal like that, you should expect to have shared pain between development operations, so that they both feel the pain of a botched deployment or of downtime, but they also share in the rewards as well, the success of the product and the customer satisfaction. We heard a lot about understanding where your problems, constraints and assets lie, understand where your strengths and weaknesses are before you go and try and tackle something. Realise that DevOps is not just about development and operations, but actually really should include the business as well. So it's an organisational challenge, not a technical challenge. We had several recommendations for books. The Goal, which was written in the 1960s by Eli Goldratt. The Phoenix Project by Gene Kim, which is a kind of an updated version of The Goal, but for a DevOps focus for technologists today. Release It by Michael Nygaard, and Continuous Delivery by Jez Humble and David Farley. There was a strand of conversation or debate today around the relationship between DevOps and ITIL, and a useful word to Google search is anti-fragility. There's been some interesting stuff that Jez Humble and other people have done around the way in which DevOps and ITIL can and should work together. And two final things. One was that it's very, very important to understand what motivates different people in different teams, and to use language which is appropriate and understood by them, rather than using language which may be internal to your team. And also to make the quality of the software very apparent and very clear. Traditionally, operations teams would probably mistrust the development teams because the software perhaps was buggy or flaky or didn't work in production. So development teams have a kind of responsibility to surface the quality of the software they're producing, to give operations a confidence that it is possible to deploy this stuff on a more regular basis in production and see that value coming out much more quickly for the customer and the business. So at DevOps Summit today, we were looking at enabling DevOps, and we had an interesting panel discussion. We kicked off with a question: which comes first, DevOps or tools? Which is obviously a bit of a contentious question. We put that in there deliberately, and that generated some interesting questions. We had a few different opinions. The tool starts building the culture. So in situations where perhaps technologists, developers or operations guys haven't had experience to a particular way of working that a tool brings in, actually introducing the tool can actually make a kind of step change in behaviour and can open people's eyes to new ways of working. But it does take a long time for that to take effect within a large organisation. Dan North had an interesting phrase, which was that tools enable commoditised learning, and that, in his opinion, tools should accrete opinion, but not features, and they should be very focused on that particular thing, with subversion as a good example of that. James Bettley pointed out that, of course, what comes first is the problem that you're trying to solve, not DevOps and the tools. Those are part of the solution. We had another question about best practices within DevOps. Now, at the moment, there is, and there probably shouldn't ever be, a book which says this is how to do DevOps. There are several different takes on it. There are some very useful books. So, Continuous Delivery by Jez Humble and David Farley is a key book to read. The Phoenix Project by Gene Kim and other authors is also another one is very valuable for the insights it gives. and Release It by Michael Nygaard is a really crucial book for understanding the kinds of problems that happen in production. It's written from a developer's point of view, but it highlights the sort of operational issues that do happen in production. Extremely valuable. Again, we heard that it's important to understand exactly where your constraints and problems lie before you go off and use tooling or try and introduce a particular kind of change. So use the theory of constraints to help you focus your efforts around improving your organization.